All right, we'll call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, May 16th, 2019. Present at the front table to my far left is Kelly Kirk, Director of Codes.
No.
What's your correct? Zoning Officer. Next to Kelly is Ed McGargy, a voting member. My immediate left, Bill Malone, our esteemed solicitor. To my far right, Ken Richardson, a voting member. To my immediate right, Bill Rhodes, a voting member. Kenny, would you lead us in, and I'm Robert Kane, the chairman, and a voting member. Kenny, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yeah, please rise, recite with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Kenny. All right. Ed?
Chairman, I seen that the minutes have been distributed to everyone, and I'd like to make a motion that the minutes of May 2nd, 2019 be approved as distributed.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any discussion? Okay. We have 4 decisions tonight, 1 continued case and 2 new cases. Our first decision is case Z18-17, Dennis and Anne Marie Friel, owners of 155 Coopertown Road, Haverford, PA, who seek a variance from the provisions of section 182-727B to allow placement of a 54-inch high estate fence in the front yards on Coopertown Road and College Avenue. Property is owned R1 and located in the 5th Ward. Bill, would you please take this case?
Yes, I would vote to deny the requested variances because the applicant has failed to establish fee simple ownership of the land on which the fence has been placed.
Okay. Kenny?
I concur.
Ed?
I agree.
And so do I. That application's denied for that reason, 4-0. Our next decision is KZ 19-7, John and Shirley Gallagher, owners of 2415 Poplar Road, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2203-0176800, who seek a variance from the provisions of section 182-208B1A to allow construction of a 25.4-foot by 25-foot, 2-story addition with handicap accessible living quarters and a kitchen on the 2nd floor over a 2-car garage. The property is owned R6 and located in the 3rd Ward. Kenny, would you please take that decision?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would vote to approve in accordance with the notes of testimony with no kitchen and no separate entrance, and that it be completed within 1 year of approval.
Ed?
I agree.
Bill?
I agree.
So do I. That application is approved with those conditions, 4-0. Next decision is case Z19-8, Timothy Moore, owner of 101 North Eagle Road, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2201-0030900, who seeks a special exception from the provisions of section 182-709 to convert the building in the O2 office district from a family use to an office use with an apartment on the 2nd floor. Property is zoned O2 and located in the 1st Ward. Ed, would you please take this decision?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I vote to approve the requested special exception, with the following condition: that it be completed in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Kenny?
I agree.
Bill?
I agree.
And so do I. That application's approved with a condition, 4-0. Our next case, next decision is Z19-11, Louis Capano III, owner of 351 Exeter Road, Haverford, PA, DC folio number 2204-0036100 and 2204-0043100, who seeks a variance from the provisions of section 182-202C5 to allow construction of a front porch that will encroach into the required 50-foot front yard setback by 10 feet 5 inches. Property is zoned R1 and located in the 5th Ward. Bill, would you please take that decision?
Yeah, I would vote to approve the requested variance, subject to the following conditions. The project will be completed in accordance with the notes of testimony, and the construction will be completed within 1 year of the date of this meeting.
Kenny?
I agree.
Ed?
I agree.
So do I. That application approved 4-0 with the condition. Our first continued case is Z19-9, Lisa Isaacs, equitable owner of 1025 Westchester Pike, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2201-02442000, who seeks a special exception from the provision of Section 182-404B3D to allow an indoor recreational facility, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The property is zoned C3 and located in the second ward. Right. How are you, Mr. Bravo?
Thank you, Mr. Kane, and good evening again. When we last met, we had distributed various exhibits to the board, and I had walked the board through those exhibits, and we were about to commence with testimony from Lisa Isaacs, one of the principals. And I will be introducing a few more exhibits, and I will update your exhibit list, and we will get to them in course, and perhaps it would make sense for me just to hand these to you now.
Okay. Thanks, Fred.
We had marked down to Exhibit A11 previously. Exhibit A12 is a guide to restaurant floor plan, area and seating. A13 is a guide to restaurant seating. A14 is an ITE, predicted peak parking demand for a restaurant. A15 is the letter that our client had sent to neighbors in connection with this application. And A16 is a legal memorandum that relates to the parking. Let me just, I have one more. Relates to the parking. As the board knows, our position in this case is that the use, an indoor recreational use, is a special exception use permitted in the C3 district. This property that we have described to you in our exhibits has no parking on site. It hasn't, and it is non-conforming to the parking requirement. Most recently, it had been used for a retail store, and the retail parking requirement is one space for every 200 square feet of gross floor area, and the area of this building, which we will have testimony, measures 32 feet in width and 115 feet in length. There are a total of 3,680 square feet of floor area, which divided by 200 indicates that the building is currently non-conforming to 19 parking spaces. We believe that the testimony will demonstrate that the proposed use will not exceed that parking requirement, and in fact, as it may be determined, the parking requirement could be considerably less. I had discussed the parking requirement as it pertains to this recreational use with the zoning officer, Kelly Kirk. I believe that the parking requirement is found in Code Section 182-707 under the category buildings or uses other than specified above. There is no parking requirement for a recreational use or anything in our view that is close to a recreational use. So this is the default requirement. Buildings or uses other than specified above, and it says, for any building or open area used for a purpose not covered above, at least one space for each 1,000 square feet of gross floor area or lot area. And in fact, whichever is larger, and our lot area is 4,687 feet. The lot measures 37.5 feet by 125 feet, as indicated in the deed that we had provided and is included in the exhibit package. So if you have one space for every 1,000 square feet of lot area, that would be 5 spaces for the 4,687 square feet. It says one space for each 1,000 square feet of gross lot, whichever is larger, except when otherwise authorized by the zoning hearing board as a special exception consistent with the principles set forth herein for comparable buildings. Now, by way of information, I had discussed and met with Kelly Kirk, zoning officer, and she can testify here as well this evening. But historically, I think the zoning officer has looked at this type of use as requiring parking under the personal service establishment parking requirement of the code. Now, I don't think this uses a personal service establishment, but I believe that historically the zoning department, the zoning officer, has looked at that as a reasonable approach to determining the parking requirement for this kind of use. So if you look at the parking requirement, which I don't think applies but has historically been applied by the zoning officer for a personal service establishment, it's one space for each 100 square feet of customer service area, in addition to one space for each employee. Now, you'll hear testimony that we have a couple of employees here, Noah Spear and Lisa Isaacs, both of whom will testify this evening. And we have a floor plan that has measurements for each of the spaces within the building that would be used. And I believe that we're going to come out to about 19 spaces if you analyze this under or close to 19 spaces if you analyzed it under that parking requirement. This board will need to make the determination as to what the appropriate parking requirement is, but I respectfully submit that a reasonable approach here would be to determine it based on buildings or uses other than specified above. We have submitted a memorandum, which is among the exhibits, a legal memorandum that would indicate that the parking nonconformity of this building may be carried forward to other uses. We're not talking about nonconforming uses here. We're talking about conforming uses, a number of uses, and you'll perhaps ask why we have started to introduce exhibits with respect to restaurants and how is that possibly relevant to this application. And we are going to, through our expert Frank Tavani, talk about what the parking requirement would be if this were used for a restaurant as a matter of right, would not be required to come before you for a special exception. And we believe that testimony will demonstrate that a restaurant would indeed have a parking demand that would be far greater, far greater than what is proposed in this instance. So I thought it important because the chairman had indicated when we last met that we had a lot of concerns about the parking and how that would impact the neighborhood with the use of the property for the proposed use. And so we want to provide you testimony on that that will guide and help you in deciding this application. So with that introduction, I'd like to call Lisa Isaacs. And Lisa, I don't recall whether you have been sworn. No, you have not.
I don't think so.
Right.
Only 2 residents. Come on up, Lisa. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Lisa Isaacs, my home address, 1131 Norsam Road, Norsam. It's in Gladwin, Pennsylvania, 19035.
And Lisa, if you just keep your voice up so that everyone can hear. Can you describe to the board your interest in this application, what your relationship is to the applicant?
Sure. I have my doctorate in clinical psychology. I was a Division I athlete, and I have 4 daughters that range in age from 9.5 to 15 years old. About 5 years ago, I was taking a kickboxing class, and the instructor recommended that I try jujitsu, in particular with Noah Spear. And so I did. I took a class and loved it. A few months later, I dragged my 4 daughters who love swimming and don't want to be separated from the swimming pool to a class, and they loved it too. And so fast forward 5 years later, and we've all been training for the last 5 years, and it's really transformed our family. We love it. It's a phenomenal sport, and Noah has a phenomenal way of teaching. He's really exceptional in his understanding of movement. And so my daughters all are on the competition team and are very accomplished jiu-jitsu athletes.
Now, we have marked for identification an agreement of sale. It's been marked as A2, and it indicates that the buyer is Lisa G. Isaacs, trustee of the Emmerich and Edith Ressler Trust. You are the Lisa G. Isaacs that is noted as trustee in
I am.
that
Yes, I
agreement
am.
of sale. And this is an agreement of sale for the purchase of the property at 1025 Westchester Pike, which is the subject of this application. Is that correct?
That is.
And we had marked Exhibit A3 as the deed to this property, which will indicate what the measurements are, length and width of this property, so that the board would know what the lot area is, to the extent that is a relevant consideration for the board in assessing compliance with the parking requirements of the code. Now, would you tell us a little bit about Spear Jiu-Jitsu, where you're located now, and how long you've been there?
Sure. We're located at 899 Penn Street in Bryn Mawr, and we've been there about 9 years. Noah has been there 9 years. I've been there 5.
And you came to identify a property in Haverford Township. Were you looking at properties generally in Haverford Township when you identified this as a location for Spear Jiu-Jitsu?
Yes.
And we have marked as Exhibit A8 a floor plan for how this building would be used. And can you tell us a little bit about how that floor plan was developed and the uses that are shown on that floor plan and how they will be used in connection with your business there?
Sure. Jiu-jitsu is trained typically on mats, so the matted area, the square center, as you first walk in the building, would be where we would hold classes. It's about, 850 square feet of space. And there's some storage area we do a lot of seminars in schools and for businesses and things like that. So we have large rollout mats that we take with us when we do that. And so we need a mat storage area. Behind that would be one office, and there's another office. We need a laundry area, utility for washing gis and things like that, and bathrooms, male and female.
So who would be using the offices that are shown on the floor plan?
Noah and myself.
Right. And the laundry, for what purpose do you have a laundry utility room?
So we need a hot water heater that the water would go in that utility closet, and we need washer dryers because sometimes you do no-gi for jiu-jitsu, where you wear workout. No-gi, you don't wear a uniform?
Is that an acronym? How do you spell
gi is GI, and it's the clothing, it's a clothing that you wear when you do the sport. And sometimes you do it without, and you just wear regular clothing, and sometimes you wear a gi. Kind of looks like like a judo uniform. And those need to be laundered, as well as other, things that we use like towels and that kind of thing.
Now, you show a men's room and a women's room, and those are toilet and sink areas, and you also show showers in each of those rooms, do you?
Yes.
And with what frequency do people who are attending classes shower here at this location?
So it depends on the person. We have some people that come in and they train for a couple hours, like they'll stay for a regular technique class, and then they'll stay for a more advanced class, and then before they go home, they want to shower and then go home. It's nice to have shower facilities for cleanliness purposes. Everything needs to stay very clean when you run any kind of, sport facility like that.
And you also show at the front a viewing area, and for what purpose would that be used?
If people want to watch a training session, this whole area is open, pretty much. So if anybody wants to watch, if a parent wants to watch, typically our kids get dropped off and they're left there and then picked up. But on occasion, parents will want to watch their kids take a class, or a spouse might want to watch their spouse take a class, something like that.
Okay. All right. Now, we have marked as Exhibit A9 a schedule and current participation at Spear Jiu-Jitsu. Can you tell us about that exhibit, how that was prepared, and what that shows?
Okay, so it shows the classes that we offer during the week and weekend. And the way we currently run classes is that we have children's classes, which are divided into younger children, ages 4 to 8, and then older children's classes, which is 9 to 15 years of age. We have an adult technique class, and then we have an advanced technique class and an open mat. So during the weekday, the littlest kids arrive at 4 o'clock, and they have a 45-minute class from 4 to 4:45, followed by the big kids who have a class from 5 to 6 o'clock, and that's
Right.
every day.
And the littlest kids are noted as little spiders in this exhibit, A9?
Right, that's correct, yes.
Okay. And the older kids, ages 9 to 15?
Are kids
Are
in this
noted
exhibit.
as kids. Okay. And you show in this table what your current experience is at your Bryn Mawr location.
Yes,
Now, will you be keeping your Bryn Mawr location when you move to this location?
no.
Right, so you will move the entire business. Do you have any other locations?
There's one downtown in Philadelphia, yes.
And these are the days and hours of operation in Bryn Mawr, and do you anticipate that the days and hours of operation at 1025 Westchester Pike will be the same as shown in Exhibit A9?
Yes,
Right. And you've also shown numbers of attendees at each of these sessions in Bryn Mawr.
correct.
And footnote 1 indicates that this schedule indicates class schedule and current attendance at Spear Jiu-Jitsu in Bryn Mawr, which has operated since 2011. Are the numbers that are shown in this table what you have experienced on the average, not only what you're experiencing currently, but what you have experienced on the average since 2011 in Bryn Mawr?
It is,
And do you anticipate that these numbers will remain the same or perhaps increase at this location in Haverford Township?
we're hopeful that they remain the same, and in terms of increase, Haverford seems like a very family-oriented community, and so people living all around the area perhaps might walk and join the classes as well, which is why the note 2 says projected range of 10 to 20. Perhaps there might be some growth eventually and hopefully in the future to accommodate that.
Brad, if I could interrupt you for 1 second. I'm looking at Exhibit A9, and it references in the third column, really, whichever column, it says weekends. Is that
Yes.
a typographical error?
Is that what, I'm sorry?
Typographical error, is that supposed to reference weekdays?
Or,
Yes,
that is correct. That is a typographical error, and I appreciate your calling it to our attention.
And
Thank
then
you.
Saturday, there's an
That's-
indication,
It is weekdays.
right, and then there's no anticipation of classes on Sundays, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I read over that, and I appreciate that. So you indicate a projected range of 10 to 20. Is there a limiting factor in the size of this building and the size of that area in the front, which is shown in Exhibit A8, that would limit you to a maximum of 20 people in a class?
Well, there's 850 square foot of actual space that we're going to be doing classes in, and it would be advisable to have 20 or under in a class because for safety reasons and things like that.
So a physical factor that limits class size is the size of this mat training area at 850 square feet.
Correct.
Right. And that's not to suggest that you would have 20. Your experience is that you have had fewer in your classes as shown on Exhibit A9. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how many employees would be in the business?
It's just Noah and myself.
And what roles do each of you play in the business?
Well, Noah is a third-degree black belt. He's an American who won Worlds in Brazil in 2004. He's very experienced, and he, runs all the programs. I typically lead the children's class, a lot of the children's classes, and I run that Little Spiders program.
Now, in addition to the table that you have testified to, do you have any special events throughout the year where you might expect a larger number of people in that building?
We do. We have belt ceremonies. Happens like once or twice a year, depending on where people are in terms of promoting them to the next color belt. It's not, jiu-jitsu is not like karate. So there's not 50 belts. It's just really 5 belt levels. So those ceremonies have a lot of meaning.
And you say that would be once or twice a year?
Yes, typically.
And historically, when have you held those belt ceremonies?
So usually, I think Noah can speak best to that, but usually in the fall we have one. And I mean, the last couple years we've only had one a year, but we could have up to 2 a year.
I asked you to measure the building.
Yes.
Did I not? Did you do that?
I did.
And can you tell us how you measured the building?
Noah and I measured it with a measuring tape. It was a 25-foot one that you could cap and then reuse.
And did you do so carefully?
We did.
All right, and could you tell us what the length and width of that building is as measured by you?
Yes, the outside length was 115 inches, and the width...
Feet?
Feet, sorry, 115 feet, and the width was 32 feet.
And that area, 115 times 32, is 3,680 square feet.
It is.
Is that correct? Did you make observations with respect to parking that is available in the area of this building?
Yes. So our busiest time really during the week is about 6 o'clock, which is when the adults start coming in because the kids are frequently drop off. So I went 3 times early on to see what the municipal lot looked like at that time, because I know the pub's right next door and there are some businesses around the corner also. And I saw that there were 5 to 7 spots open each of those times, at least when I went there. But and also there's a large CVS parking lot that's right adjacent to the building, and then there's a road, and then there's more parking along the CVS. And the big CVS lot, I would say each time that I went was almost all open, maybe 4 or 5 cars at the most in that huge lot. So I went.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
The CVS lot is a private lot owned by CVS,
It is,
correct?
yes.
It's not a municipal lot.
Right. So there were 5 to 7 spots in the municipal lot each time, and I went over to the CVS store and asked to speak to the manager, and he was very nice, and he said, typically people with businesses do park in our lot, and that they have no issue with people parking in a lot, but he would recommend, talking to corporate, because he can't, say one way or the other. All he knows is that he has no issue with people parking in the lot. So I emailed the head of real estate for CVS for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and he wrote back saying that they absolutely do not, that they can't make any kind of like arrangement with anybody, official arrangement with anybody, and people have tried in the past, but that they absolutely don't monitor that lot, and that I should know that they don't monitor the lot. And he emailed me back, and I sent it to Fred, who I think put it as one of the exhibits, or has it, yeah.
Would you tell us, going back to A9, you said the adults start coming in at 6 p.m. And you show 3 different hours, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, and you show a number of people in each of those sessions. Can you tell us how they work and whether there is any overlap on the numbers that are shown in these sessions?
Yeah, so adults come in around 6 o'clock. That technique class tends to be an intro or a beginner level type class, a lot of technique in the class. People who are lower belts aren't invited to stay past that technique hour. But people who are higher belts do come for the technique hour. So typically what happens is we'll have an influx of like the maximum, which is on average 10 people come. And then people trickle out of that class because they're not high enough belt level to stay for the next class. On occasion, there's a couple people that might come late to enter the next class if they had work or something like that. But people usually come around 6, and then they trickle out over the evening. So those numbers reflect like we'd have approximately 10 people start at 6 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, maybe 8 people are left to stay. And then at 8 o'clock, there's something called open mat, and usually half the original amount of people are staying for that. People are tired, so they'll go home. But some young, people like to stay and roll and practice the technique that they've learned over the last couple hours.
Now, did you reach out to any of the neighbors of this property who received notice of the zoning application?
Yeah, so I got a list of, I asked Joan Scheck, I think her name is, for a list of everybody who's notified of the meeting and their addresses, which she provided to me on email. And we sent out a letter to all the neighbors inviting them, I think it was the evening of 7 o'clock on April 17th. To come and to meet us and to explain, we explained what, that we're seeking an exception to be in the building and to come talk to us. So,
Okay, and we have marked for identification as A15, the letter that you sent to the neighbors.
yes.
And can you tell us what the experience was on the night of that meeting?
So Noah and I arrived, and it was a beautiful day outside. We propped the doors open, we set up some food, and we spoke to, I would say, about 10 people that were just walking by. None of them were people that had received the letter, but everyone was really friendly and were super interested in talking. And we had like all kinds of people pass by. They all seemed to be walking in the area because they lived behind. Like, oh, do you live nearby? Yeah, I live right behind. Oh, I live behind, and my daughter and, my other daughter lived there, and the grandchildren live there, or whatever. So we had women and men, all different ages, walk by. People were very interested. One guy, he was really...
Well, without going into detail, was there anyone who objected
No.
to this proposed
No, we
use?
had a really nice night.
Right. And again, A15 was sent to all of the people to whom the township sent notice of this application. Is that correct?
Yes.
I have no further questions of Lisa Isaacs, if the board does.
Question? Kenny?
Yeah, at on the 17th, when you invited all the neighbors, you didn't have a sign in or?
I did have a sign-in, but since nobody had gotten the letter, no one seemed, we didn't really ask people to sign. There was one gentleman who said, "Do you have someplace I can sign in support of your business?" So he did sign it, and he wrote, he said, "Can I somehow support what you're doing in our neighborhood?" So I actually have that in the car if you want it, but only the one gentleman actually signed the thing. We didn't ask anybody to sign.
And the open mat, the jujitsu is a defensive?
Yes, it's primarily a self-defense, and I know it can speak more to that in greater detail. But yeah, it's a self-defense. It's non-striking self-defense. And sport. It's also a sport.
Okay, so if you're engaged with another individual?
Yes.
So does that, two people engaged, take up more room than people at one of your classes?
Oh, well, the classes are typically have a lot of engagement as well. So when you practice a technique, if Noah's teaching or if I'm teaching, we'd show a technique using someone else and everyone would watch and then we'd practice the technique. So in order to practice, you pair off into pairs and then you would do that technique. And there's also live sparring during the classes, which is what the open mat looks like.
Okay, so if you had 20 individuals, that would be 10 pairs?
Yes.
And you, is there a defined area for two combatants?
No, I mean, you're supposed to keep your space, and the, the higher level belts, help the belts that are underneath learn how to do that. But people generally keep in their defined area. There's always an instructor on the mat who is watching over as well.
Right, so if you were in competition, which I guess Noah's been in,
Yes.
is that like a boxing ring?
No, okay, so usually there's a large mat set down, and it depends on what kind of tournament. So local tournaments might have 8 square, like, so if it would be a large gray mat, just say, there would be 8 blue squares, a defined area within the gray mat that would have a referee in each of the squares, and they would call matches into those, and they're numbered 1 through 8, just say.
And you could fit that into the area that you're proposing?
No, no. That's for combat. That's for competition.
Right, so if you were going to have an exhibition, how many people could be exhibiting at one time?
Like if we had a tournament?
Yeah.
I don't know. We've never had a tournament before.
And that's an excellent point. You do not have competitions or tournaments at your present location, and you don't intend to have them at this location.
Correct.
That was one of my questions. So
Yeah.
you would agree as a condition, if the application were approved, not to have any competitive events?
Like a tournament?
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, Kenny, go ahead.
And one more, there's public transportation out front there, and do you know how your contestants come in? Or they drive their own cars, or?
The children are dropped off, and then the parents come pick them up. The adults, if they're in the area, they can walk, or they can take, right now we're in Bryn Mawr, so there's a train station right by. I didn't ask how many people drive and how many take the train. I'm assuming a lot of people right now where we are driving their vehicles in. In the location on Westchester Pike, however, there is a lot more freedom to walk if you're local. Like currently, where we are now, I know there's a handful of people that do live in Haverford Town. I'm not sure if they're walking distance or not, though I haven't asked. One I know is walking distance, but I don't know if the other ones are.
Okay, so you don't anticipate the public transportation
The bus?
helping you out at all? Yeah.
Possibly. I know that bus also comes from Philly, but I don't think it's going to be used as much as somebody driving their car, honestly.
So I have,
Bill?
So let me just follow up with a line of question that Ken started. So in a competition where you have 2 people in one of the 4 squares on a large gray mat, how is the competitions within that square? The 2 people?
Yes.
So if people were practicing, do you try to give them a comparable amount of space as one of those squares in your setting?
No, they don't get that space. In any jujitsu school, they don't get that kind of space. We're actually, I think, more conservative in making sure of safety. I mean, we're a small business, and we run our business almost like a family. It's not like a YMCA in terms of like huge business. We run a small family-type business. We're concerned about our clients and our members. If someone doesn't come in for a week or so, we call, we say, how things going? I noticed you haven't been in. Everyone seems to be friendly with each other. We go out to dinner. We might go to the Westgate pub afterwards. On Thursday night, a lot of us go out together. It's not, we're looking out for each other. We want everyone to be safe.
So, how much space do you set aside for two people to practice? I mean, what's the kind of the safety zone that two people would have within this 850 square feet?
So it's hard for me to give you numbers, but I guess if you have 850 square feet, I guess you figure, I don't know what the math is, if you divide that by 20 people is what we're feeling comfortable having it as a maximum for a class. I would imagine that's something like 50 square foot or something like that. I don't have a calculator on me right now, but that's what we feel comfortable in that space. We feel comfortable actually with 20 people in the space we have right now, which in Bryn Mawr is about, I think it's a little over 700 square feet. But we're being, conservative. We do not want injuries. We care about the people that train with us.
So the location in Bryn Mawr is the training space is smaller than the space in the new building?
Slightly, yes.
And you mentioned that the average class schedule sizes are set forth on A9. And the average class size on a Saturday morning or on a weekday evening at 6 o'clock is 10 people.
Yes.
But that could go up to 20, so.
I think safely it can go up to 20. We're just hoping to retain what we have now. We're happy with what we have now.
Yeah, look, I think our view is we'd like you to be successful, but parking is a big problem, right? So, we have to sort of think about, would there be a number at which you'd be okay with as a cap maybe of people? And, you identified 6 PM as sort of that, maybe the heaviest turnover time, crossover time.
Yes.
So in theory, you could have a class starting at 6 PM with 20 people and a class ending at 6 PM with 16 people, or if you doubled the number 8 that you have there.
Except that
That
the
would be a
class,
worst-case scenario, is that?
correct. However, the class that's ending at 6 PM is a kids class, and most of those kids, I would say most of them, are drop-off pickup. So they're not actually using parking spaces.
I got it. I'm just wondering about how many people, so the average, though, is 8 of those kids in that time slot, 5 to 6 PM.
Yes.
You said that the average of the 10, starting at 6, could go up to 20. With that 8, what's the upper level of that 8? Is that 20 also?
It is, with a lot of siblings
Right.
that are in
So let's
that.
talk a little bit about the drop-off, all right? A parent, you have some kids as young as 4.
Yes.
So how does a parent do a drop-off?
Currently,
Well, no, in this location, how do you envision? There's 2 spots in front of your building, kind of a weird cutout in the park, in the sidewalk.
yes.
How does a parent do a drop-off there if those 2 spots are full and they've got a 4-year-old getting out of the car?
So the cutout kind of looks like well, we've been there lots of times now, but it looks like it can fit about 3 cars going forward.
Right.
I have 4 daughters, like I said, ages 9.5 to 15, that currently will go down and help people get out of the car sometimes. The parents are having difficulty, they have younger siblings or whatever, and they help pick people out. This is a much easier situation for us because the kids can, and there's glass right there, the kids can just go out, help the kids out of the car, and those kids happily go to my children who are old enough to navigate
And,
that.
one of the concerns are cars queuing up there because you might have as many as 40 class attendees, 20 leaving, 20 getting picked up and 20 getting dropped off. And at 6 o'clock, which is kind of rush hour on Westchester Pike, and there's really only a spot to pull in for 2 or 3 cars.
Yes.
And people are going to be backing up on Westchester Pike at that time. And my guess is that they would look for another way to drop off safely children, particularly pick up at that hour.
Well, there's a municipal lot right around the corner, and there's also that CVS lot. We're happy to help people get out of their cars there as well, whatever system you think would be safest. And that's why we asked Frank, who's a traffic engineer, to evaluate. We want safety for everyone, not just our customers, but also the neighborhood as well.
Lisa, you testified earlier that you made several visits to the municipal lot and saw half a dozen available spots at and around 6 PM.
Yes.
Was that in each of those cases, was the Westgate Pub open?
It was, yes.
It was, okay. I don't think I have any other questions at this point.
I don't think there's any left for anyone to ask.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So the current layout that you're showing,
Yes.
it has the 2 offices, the
Yes.
large office and then the smaller office in the back.
Yes.
And the front office and the storage, the 2 storage closets associated with it are the same dimension as the mat area. So do you foresee at some point expanding and getting rid of that office and
No.
pushing the mat training area back?
Where the offices are, absolutely
Yes.
not. No.
Okay.
I mean, that's enough space. You know, it's more than we can imagine for spacing. Yeah.
So you would accept as a condition, like any layout changes, you'd have to come back
Yes.
to the board? Okay. Thank you.
Ed?
Yes, the question I see in your exhibits, you have an exhibit of the proposed floor plan. Do you have the existing floor plan?
Of the space right now
Right.
on 1025, it's open. There's nothing in there. It's been gutted. It's all open.
You have any idea how much cost of improvements are going to be able to implement this floor plan?
We have asked a contractor for some pricing, yes. But I haven't been able to get like subcontractors and stuff in there to do that because,
Okay, it's just one of the goals is that we try to move in non-conforming properties, and non-conforming for this property is more than just the parking, it's also side setbacks and front yard setback. There's a lot of different non-conforming for the building, and making all these improvements, whether we're leading a path where we're not trying to go in the right direction to conform with the zoning sometime in the future. That's the only thing I'm bringing forward now.
we hope to be in this building, you know, forever. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Lisa? Kenny? Bill? Yes?
No.
Ed?
No,
Okay.
yeah, we can make a 15-minute gap, absolutely.
Just to respond to the questioning about the 6 o'clock hour, and I asked Lisa whether she would be agreeable to arranging the schedule so that that class that is shown as the 5 o'clock class on the current schedule were to end 15 minutes before the next class began, to create a spread
Or the next class,
between the classes.
or the next class would start 15 minutes later.
Yeah, just that there would be a spread in whatever the schedule adjustment would be, and she said that she would be agreeable to doing that. So while this is the current schedule, the proposed schedule could be arranged so that there is that gap, so there is not that overlap.
And just, can I add one more thing?
Sure.
The children, the children don't take showers after their classes, they leave. because they're usually drop off and pick up. That helps. Oh, do you want that? He was asking what it looks like inside.
We have a picture of what the inside looks like at the current time. It's on a digital picture on a cell phone. We haven't marked it as an exhibit, but if you'd care to look at it, we have it.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah, and it's consistent with what Lisa had described. It's just open space at the current
At
time.
least, this is more like grappling, right? It's not like karate, where you're just kicking and flailing. More like,
Yes, it is grappling, yes. It's like jujitsu is I could show you videos if you want to see them, but they're not, exhibits. but
I have it on my phone, but we
I've
did,
sent him
we
some.
did mark it as an
We're
exhibit.
proud, yeah. But it's like Noah could tell you a little bit more, but my understanding and how I view it is like a combination of judo and wrestling a little bit, if I had to describe it. So you start on the feet typically, although many classes don't, but you can start on the feet, and there's some kind of takedown, and then you grapple on the ground.
So you two could give us a little exhibit?
I cannot.
Noah and I would be happy to do that for you. We'd be really happy to do that for you. It would make me feel comfortable, yeah. He actually could do one with you guys if you wanted to.
I wrestled in high school.
chair.
I wrestled in high school.
All right, so actually, would you like,
Noah,
I don't want to
beware.
get my butt beat, but. Okay, I don't have the answer. Does anybody else?
I just have a few questions of Noah before I call Frank. So Noah, if you could be sworn, Lisa?
Please raise your right hand.
Good evening.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Noah Spear, 2121 Mount Vernon Street, Philadelphia, PA, 19130.
And the business at this location would be known as Spear Jiu-Jitsu, and I assume that's after you, correct?
Yeah, my last name's Spear.
Would you tell the board just a little bit about your background, your experience, how you got into Jiu-Jitsu, and what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is?
We've been working on that.
Yeah,
You guys did
he's
good.
called me on my inability to pronounce Jiu-Jitsu.
You got it.
But I'm getting
It's not
better.
easy. Yeah, I guess a quick background is I was in college at Temple University, pursuing a psychology bachelor degree. And I wasn't taking things seriously. I was sort of running amok, I guess, just not putting my mind to it. So I remember sitting with my father and saying, I think I need some discipline in my life. And I was like, maybe martial art would help. I just remember watching, kung fu movies and stuff and thinking they were cool, and I had a big brother and we'd tussle. So I saw this event that was a brand new event where they sort of had different martial arts going against one another. And I was like, that'll be interesting. This is good timing. I can see what that is. And I watched this guy skinny guy, not that big, beat these really thick thug striking people without throwing a punch. I thought that was so amazing. It sort of spoke to like mystical martial arts stuff, and I could see him do it. And then, so I thought and this guy won. And all in all, the story is this is the jiu-jitsu I ended up pursuing, and it was a family from Brazil, and they chose their representative because he was skinny. So if he won, it was technique, it was jiu-jitsu. And that's what I saw. And the fact that he didn't throw a punch and beat these people, I thought was amazing and really neat, right? Because I didn't feel like I wanted to be aggressive with martial arts. I just wanted some discipline and sort of get myself straight, So I started to take it. There was a school in Philly. So basically, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very new. It's one of the newer martial arts. And it's extremely practical as a result. So maybe Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is feudal Japan, and it's like samurai swords. And so when it got to Brazil, like we don't have that. We have, some street stuff going on, things like that, and people make headlocks or something, you know what I mean? So when it got to the States, which is not too long ago, all in all, it's a very new martial art. I would say late 80s, early 90s it got to the United States. I started in 1996. I'm technically like a first-generation black belt in it, and it helped me out a lot. It really did. And I had an older brother, and we tussled, so like I was good at it right away because I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I wasn't trying to get hurt, you know? So it spoke to me a lot. And so I ended up learning what I saw that guy do and see how it made sense and see what it was. And I thought it was neat, and it just helped me out a lot. I went back to school because I had dropped out and tried to really focus on getting myself straight. I was wasting time at school. Went back, won the world championships, got on the dean's list, got my bachelor's, all these things. It got me good, you know, it got me set. So helped me out a lot. I started teaching. I'd been helping out in the self-defense classes that they would run at the school I started with. And despite, I'll get nervous in competitions, but I won the worlds. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't necessarily a goal of mine to do that, but like, I know at my time, the professor that I had would push, my jiu-jitsu professor would push us to compete. But that was, not that that wasn't an awesome thing to do that. I did that in Brazil, as the gringo down in Brazil and win. It was pretty cool. But that I saw that the self-defense aspect of it was great. That like kids in the classes and stuff like that could do these techniques. Nothing against other martial arts or anything like that, but it's true like in a karate class with striking, a kid this big can't get away with a self-defense technique that has to punch somebody, say my size or something like that. But the jiu-jitsu stuff is very legit in terms of leverage. So I was like, I believe in this stuff. And at least like we've come in a couple times now and sort of witnessed, you know, how things go here, and it's very interesting to do so. But the question of the character of Haverford Town stuff that came up, and I thought that was sort of a neat, important thing. That the logistics and things are sort of for y'all to go over, and that's extremely important, obviously. But also in terms of just for me to speak to it, it's a character building thing. It's defensive. It's not offensive. You can't be a jerk and do jujitsu. You need partners to work with and stuff like that. So you can't have somebody who just wants to dominate the area or anything like that, or someone else. It has to be a very, it just makes good people, good relationship. Kids redefine what fighting is and stuff like that, to be fair about it, to only do it in self-defense situations and things like that. And it's workable self-defense. So, I mean, you know, you can maybe hear it in her voice too about that for her daughters. Her daughters are amazing. They're phenoms, and they help out with other kids. It's just neat because you want to help other people do it. I need somebody to train with, sorry.
No, that's right, and I appreciate all that. You heard Lisa answer questions with regard to the space that is appropriate here, and do you agree with her testimony that the space that is shown on Exhibit A8, that mat training area, that has a capacity of no more than 20 people that is physically imposed by the layout of that space?
Yes.
And you have been in business at Spear Jiu-Jitsu and since 2011?
Yeah, at the current location,
At the
yes.
current
I've been
location
doing it
in
a
Bryn
long
Mawr.
time, teaching for a long time.
And the numbers that are shown, and weekends should be weekdays, as Mr. Malone pointed out, but those are your average numbers over those last 8 years
Yes.
at those various time slots.
Yes.
I don't have any other questions of Mr. Spear.
Ed?
No questions.
Yes.
No.
Benny? No. Bill? I do, but they're not related to the case, so I won't drag it out.
Talk John LeClaire? I want to. Sorry.
I don't want to see it beat John LeClaire. You have anything else, Fred?
Just Mr. Tavani.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bill.
Thanks for your time.
Frank, if you would be sworn.
How you doing? Thanks. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your full name and the capacity in which you appear.
Frank Tavani, I'm a traffic engineer.
Frank, we had asked you to get involved in this application to principally assess the parking that is proximate to 1025 Westchester Pike, but also take a look at what circulation patterns are, what the opportunities would be for drop-off where that might occur. And you prepared a report that has been marked for identification as A10, is that correct?
Yes,
Right. And we had marked as A11 your CV, which is your background and experience, is that correct?
that is correct.
And in the past, have you had occasion to do parking studies and parking analysis for different applicants?
Yes.
And can you give us a little bit of a sampling of some of the clients for which or for whom you have done parking analysis?
I've done a number of retail investigations for various clients in Haverford, Lower Merion, and Radnor Townships, just to choose a selection of nearby municipalities.
And have you done for any parking analysis for institutions, educational institutions?
Yes, I've been Villanova University's traffic engineer of choice for the last 15 years, and also Lower Merion School District for the same period of time.
Fred, if I could interrupt, Mr. Devani, you've testified before this board in the past, correct?
I have,
And you've been admitted as an expert in the field of traffic engineering, is that correct?
yes.
Since you've last been before this board, have there been any changes in your licensure at all in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
No, nor anywhere else.
Have you been suspended, censured, subject to any discipline?
No.
In your professional capacity?
No.
With that, being as the board is familiar with Mr. Devani, I would recommend he be accepted as an expert in the field of traffic engineering.
And is that the field that you wished to offer him?
Traffic engineering is part of traffic engineering, parking and parking analysis.
Yes.
Now, can you?
Any discussion or objection from board members?
None.
All right, then we'll admit Frank as Mr. Devani as an expert in traffic engineering.
Thank you.
Would you take the board through Exhibit A10, describe what you did with respect to this application and what Exhibit A10 says?
Certainly. A10 is a 8-page exhibit, 4 pages of text, 4 pages of figures. Since the last witness and the witness before that was talking a little bit about parking and circulation, what is shown as page 6 or figure 2 of A10 may be of some interest or help to the board. It's essentially an aerial image showing the immediate surroundings of the site, including the CVS to the left, the primary CVS parking immediately adjacent to the CVS building, Roosevelt Avenue, which connects Westchester Pike and Garfield and has some limited on-street parking on the site side of the road, the secondary CVS parking, and the municipal parking to the right of Westgate Pub. With regard to that, it's interesting to note for the record that the municipal parking is metered. However, after 6 p.m., the meters are no longer in use. And as you heard from earlier witnesses, that coincidentally and very helpfully is when the applicant's expected peak parking will actually arrive. So that is probably going to be one of the primary areas for patrons to park. Not shown on figure 2 of A10 is on-street parking along Manoa Road. That's just to the right of the figure. There are 10 on-street metered spaces on Manoa Road. 8 of them are signed no stopping from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., again, the magic number. So after 6 p.m., another 10 spaces shown outside of this study area are available. And all of these spaces total nearly 90 in number. As you heard from the first witness, there are children's classes and adult classes. There's essentially no parking associated with the children's classes. They start at 4 and 5. There's simply pickup and drop-off activity. The parents like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes because they can drop off their children and run errands for the period of time while the children are learning. Some of them may stay, but the majority actually don't, which means there's very little parking demand associated during those hours. It's really at 6 o'clock when the technique class starts that the parking will begin to rise. Some may even arrive shortly before 6 o'clock. And as you heard from Lisa, the next class is a comp class, a competitive class. It's not really additional new parkers. It's generally carryovers from the first class, some of whom leave. And then lastly, at 8 p.m. is open mat time. I made observations in the area in early April, and my observations are generally consistent with Lisa's testimony. And I would also note for the record that what's shown in Figure 2, which was obviously flown during daylight hours, I can't say exactly what time, but it wasn't nighttime since it was daylight, is generally representative of what the parking is like in these areas during the day from what I've seen, meaning that any parking demand in the CVS secondary lot is closest to the backyards of the homes along Garfield Avenue, but the spaces that are closest to 1025 Westchester Pike are frankly the least desirable spaces for anyone, whether it's the CVS, the area residents, but they are the most desirable to 1025 Westchester Pike. You heard a little bit about how the parents drop off their children. I would suspect that this will be an education process for parents, that they will probably be instructed to first loop through the municipal lot, to use that as an area to drop off children. It's very convenient because it has 2 driveways. They could simply turn right into the first driveway, loop around in a counterclockwise fashion, stop somewhere there, meet Lisa's daughters. Children leave the car with a door facing the right side as it has to, and then the parents leave. Another alternative would be to potentially use that cutout area on Westchester Pike if it seems to be available. But if it's not available, they can certainly see that as they're approaching the municipal parking lot and decide to use that instead. And if all else fails, it's a little faint in Figure 2, but there's actually a driveway for the secondary parking lot that I was just talking about, just beyond those 3 spaces in the cutout. So another option would be for parents to turn into that large parking lot, not even park necessarily, let the children out, and then turn to the left and leave onto either Roosevelt Avenue, or frankly go back out by turning around and using the same driveway from whence they came. The dearth of parking in the parking lot usually means it's pretty easy to turn around in the parking lot and go back out onto Westchester Pike if that's what they desire.
Are there also potentially drop-off opportunities and parking opportunities on Roosevelt Avenue?
Yes, there are 2 curb cuts, 2 driveways for the large secondary lot, and in between those 2 driveways are 2 or 3 available non-metered, non-regulated parking spaces available to anyone. And then beyond those driveways, there's about another 5 parking spaces between that driveway and Garfield Avenue, and those are more typically occupied since they're closer to the residences.
Right, and you prepared a table that is on page 3 of your report that sets forth your observations, and could you just address that, summarize what is shown in that table?
Yes, and I will note for purposes of record that I did discover there are a few small typos in this table, which I will just point out and correct now. For example, the first table, which are observations on Monday, April 1st, the 14 shown at the bottom of the second column should actually be a 16. And
Which page you on, Frank?
page 3 of A10,
Page 3.
page 3 contains 3 tables.
Okay, yep.
So the way this reads is, from left to right are different parking locations, whether it's the municipal lot I mentioned, the awkward parking spaces on Westchester Pike, which is WCP, that totals about 3, and it continues off to the right side. And then under that shaded gray line, which is the capacity of those areas, are observations I made at approximately 6 p.m., 6:15, 6:30 of the spot parking demand. So for example, it was pretty consistent in the municipal metered lot, so the available parking at the worst time should have read 16, not 14. Likewise, the next column, at 6 o'clock, there happened to be 2 cars parked in that small area directly in front of the site, which means that under worst case conditions, there was still 1 space available. Although there were times when I was there that all of the spaces were available. But to be consistent, or to be conservative, I chose to focus on the worst case of each of these observations to show how much parking remained available in the study area.
Right, so just for clarity here, We'll take, this is on Monday, April 1st. You have the capacity of the municipal meter lot at 20. Under that, you say 6 PM, and you have the number 4. What does 4 represent?
That means I walked through the lot at approximately 6 o'clock, and I observed 4 spaces that were occupied by cars.
So that number 4 indicates the number of cars that were parked in that lot at that time.
Right.
And the same is true of all of the numbers on this table, that the numbers that you see are the number of cars that were parked.
Any of the numbers shown to the right of the clock hours are observed parked cars, yes.
Right. And then, of course, the available is simply the difference between the capacity and the number of parked cars.
And specifically, it's the difference between capacity and the highest number of observed cars in each time period for each day. So generally speaking, there's ample parking, even in just a municipal lot and on Roosevelt Boulevard, for example, consistent with the expectations of the applicant. And it's also interesting to compare these potential parking demands with another by right use, which I believe was another exhibit
Right.
you mentioned.
And you had
A14.
prepared a document that has been marked as A14.
Yes.
And before we get to A14, I would just like to comment on A12 and A13. A12 and A13 have been introduced to, for 2 points. The first point is that for a restaurant, generally, the rule of thumb, as indicated by these 2 documents, is that if you have a certain amount of space, we'll say 3,000 square feet, 60% of that space, if you are creating a restaurant within that space, would be used for dining, and 40% would be used for kitchen and other areas. This is what is indicated in How to Create a Restaurant, Exhibit A12. Also, in A12, on the second page, it says it is common for most restaurants or coffee shops with a general menu to have an average of about 15 square feet per person. So if you have a certain number of square feet that you are using for dining, if you divide that by 15, you would get the number of people who would be occupying that space, the number of tables, chairs, the number of chairs, people who could be seated in a restaurant. And we took 2 different websites to confirm that those numbers are correct. If you look at A13, A13 is how much restaurant space do you really need? And it's indicated there that there's an industry standard of about 12 square feet for customer seating, 12 square feet per person. What we have done is looked at a more conservative 15 square feet. Exhibit A12 would indicate that you can have between, 15 feet is the average or square feet per person for most general menu restaurants. Fine dining restaurants would actually have more square feet per person of 18 to 20 square feet. But Frank is going to go through an analysis where he would look at the number of square feet that would be permitted for dining in this particular building. And what we have done is we have said we will not have any more, the restaurant parking requirement under the code is 1 space per 100 square feet. So we said, okay, we'll take 1,800 square feet of this building and assume that you're going to have dining in 1,800 square feet, which is less than 60% of our floor area in the building for dining. And if you take 1,800 square feet for the dining area, that yields how many persons could be seated at 15 square feet per person?
120.
120, okay. So you, at my request, had done an analysis of the parking demand that could be generated by a restaurant at this location. And a restaurant is a permitted use. A restaurant would not require an applicant to come before the board for a special exception, but could be established at this location without exacerbating the existing parking nonconformity of 19 spaces, which is the nonconformity for this building for the existing retail use. So if you would go through the analysis, Frank, that is shown on Exhibit A14.
So A14 is 6 pages. I would ask the board members to ignore the first page for the moment, which has tables, and turn to the
Means to
second.
look right away.
Yeah, I should have put that last. The next page should look like, it should say Land Use 932 in the upper left. So this is a page from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or ITE, Parking Generation Manual, 5th edition, just published this year. And there's a tremendous amount of information about restaurants in this edition. And what this page, the one, again, that says Land Use 932 in the upper left shows, is the expected variation in terms of percentage of peak parking demand for various types of restaurants by hour of day and day of week. So for example, the first page is percent of weekday peak parking demand starting as early as midnight and continuing until 11 p.m. that day. And it's broken down to different categories, either a family restaurant serving breakfast, which is the first column, one that doesn't serve breakfast, and then one that has a lounge or a bar. The next page is Saturday, and there's a reason why I'm skipping through this kind of quickly. The third page is the first page that looks like a chart, and this is the peak parking demand Monday through Thursday for restaurants at 120 square feet. Depending on the type of model you used, it's either 40 or 41 parking spaces, as shown in the lower left. So in a typical weekday, a restaurant will generate at peak times, about 40 or 41 spaces. On a Friday, which is the next page of A14, depending on what model you use, it's either 56 or 65 spaces. There's a little bit of a variation there. And the next page is a Saturday. The model is a little bit tighter, and it's 40 or 41 spaces, which brings us full circle to the first page. So what I did here is I created this page. This is an Excel spreadsheet where I took all the percentages on the preceding pages, as I explained, married them with the 100% peak parking demand to show how on a typical weekday, Friday, or Saturday, for a 120-seat restaurant, how much parking may be generated by hour of day and day of week in those first 3 columns. So for example, on a Monday through Thursday, it's no less than 11 spaces, and it goes as high as 40. On a Saturday, it's no less than 22 late at night, and again, it goes as high as 40. Friday goes as high as 57. And then what's shown on the right in the last 3 columns are the applicant's expectations based on its performance at existing locations of its parking demand, which I conservatively chose to include some overlap of the pickup drop-off activity for parents and children married with the arrival of adults in the next clock hour. And as you can see, there are certain hours of the day when they're not even open, Monday through Friday, as well as Saturday. And even with my conservative assumptions, there's no hour where there should be more than 17 spaces. And some of these hours are truly a spot parking demand, just when the parents are arriving and dropping off children. It's not really parking, but I included them in there as well. You could even take those out, and it would be even less actual parking demand.
If there were a 15-minute spread between the 5 o'clock class, approximately a 5 o'clock class, and the approximately 6 o'clock class.
Right.
Would that affect any of the numbers that are shown on this table?
Yeah, essentially all the 17s would become 12s, yes.
And what do you conclude when you look at this table with respect to the parking demand for the proposed use compared to the parking demand for a use that would be permitted by right in the C3 district, namely a restaurant use?
The conclusion is the applicant's parking demand would benefit the township by resulting in significantly lower demand over the entirety of a typical week. No parking demand during certain hours of the day. And the township would actually have a much bigger parking problem with the by right use of the restaurant if that went in instead.
Board has any questions of Mr. Tabani?
Ed?
No question.
Bill?
I defer to Jess first.
Jess?
I just had a quick question about your cover letter, actually, just a clarification. It says on the cover letter that you're opening a third location in Havertown, and I just wanted to make sure your previous testimony that you're closing the Bryn Mawr location is correct. Okay. Thank you.
Ken?
The parking generation manual, they have restaurants in there, but not karate studios,
Yeah.
jujitsu studios, or
Yeah, every subsequent edition gets larger and more robust, and they do introduce new land use codes, but we have not yet gotten to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu land use category in ITE's parking generation.
yeah, but they have like different restaurants, like they have
Yes,
food restaurants, fancy restaurants.
that's,
They-
yeah,
Do they have a gymnastics classification or
no,
nothing?
no. There really is, I mean, that's always the first thing that we turn to see if there is available data, but I've been doing this for 26 years, and I've been blessed to represent a large number of clients. This is my first jiu-jitsu application, so I'm not surprised that ITE has no data either.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I had a couple questions I wanted to ask. On figure 2 in exhibit A10, it shows 6 cars parked in the back of the secondary CVS lot.
Yep.
Do you know if, in your observations, you made several trips to the area and you were monitoring it, did that appear to be employee parking of CVS?
I did not see anyone parked in the back row of, I did not see anyone parked in the row closest to Garfield Avenue enter or exit those cars during my visits. I did see some spaces turn over, which were more in the middle of the parking lot, and some of them seemed to walk in the direction of Garfield Avenue, some seemed to walk toward CVS. But the back row, the row closest to Garfield, I don't recall seeing anyone enter or exit those cars.
Okay,
They
and
were
so,
static.
and all of your visits were in the evening, essentially, or late afternoon, evening?
There were other times that I visited that were not shown in those tables, but since the applicant believed that those times were the peak times, that's what I focused on.
Sure, and it would strike me that that is either likely CVS employee parking, they ask the employees to park as far away from the building as possible within their lot, or, given its location, it's parking by others who maybe are residents nearby who are being allowed to use those spots.
I should mention also.
In your judgment, you think that that's a fair guess?
The only caveat I would add is, I think it's possible that, and perhaps likely, CVS employees might use SEPTA and mass transit. There's actually 5 SEPTA bus routes within 1 block of the CVS, and maybe there's 5 employees at this CVS. I think that's probably a large number. I would suspect at least some of those cars are residents that have extra vehicles that are just using that as convenience, and the CVS doesn't care.
Right.
But it could be employees as well.
When you did your analysis, what assumptions do you make about the employees of this establishment parking? Where are they parking in your,
They were not specifically included in the analysis. As you heard, it's really two, it's Noah and Lisa. I would suspect that if the first class is at 4 o'clock on weekdays, for example, they may arrive closer to 3 o'clock. Knowing that these parking spaces would be desirable for their students, I would imagine that they may park on Roosevelt Avenue in between the two driveways I just mentioned to you, or I mentioned when Mr. Fromhold was questioning me. Looking again on figure 2, on street on Roosevelt, between the two driveways, there were 2 public parking spaces, which is a convenient number for what their expected demand is. But there could easily be other opportunities that they chose to use as well.
in the municipal lot, is there a time limit during the day for how long you can park in a spot?
There is, and I do not remember that number. It's a long time, but I could probably look on Google Maps very quickly and drill down on it.
Several places in A10, you talk about the operating hours, but the operating hours in your report look different than the operating hours that have been presented on A9. You've suggested that they would commence operations on weekdays at 4 PM, but I think the schedule is to start at noon.
Those classes, and we may have to recall Ms. Isaacs, but it's my understanding that those classes are either on Saturday, the classes that are shown 10, 11, and 12 in the first row, or are only by appointment on weekdays. Yeah, I think there's actually, the column that says weekends should probably say weekdays.
Right, we've determined that, so.
And you
there's
see there's a-
classes between 12 and 1,
X,
right? And maybe that's appointment only, but
those are by appointment only.
yeah, you can,
The classes from 12 to 1 during the weekdays are very low attendance, so we typically have on average 4 people there. And they are during the weekday. The weekend one has more because it follows the same schedule as during the week, but earlier on in the day.
thank you. Mr. Giovanni, you said that in your analysis, some parents don't drop off, they stay.
Yes.
Can you quantify some?
I could not, but I believe Lisa probably could give you a better number. I don't want to be 0 for 2.
Well, you know what? Take a break. We're going to take 5 minutes.
Okay.
Action. And then we have to count to 5 once the light comes on.
I only have one more question.
Now, wait. We're going to resume the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, what's today's date, Bill? May 9th, 6th? 16th, 2019. Go ahead.
I only have one more. You mentioned that there was the possibility of actually pulling into the secondary lot of CVS off West, directly from Westchester Pike. Right. And that's because there's at-grade curb or at the sidewalk, right? There's no curb that a car would have to go over.
No, there's a driveway for that part.
There's actually a driveway.
There's a driveway.
Okay, and when you observed the CVS lot, did you see any cars parked facing onto Westchester Pike? In other words, it appears from figure 2 that it is striped for parking there, not as a driveway.
I think I'm so used to pinching and zooming on my phone, I find I do it on paper now. But if you look very, very carefully, it's a little bit faint. There are 2 parking spaces that are striped closest to Westchester Pike, closest to the site. But then beyond that, there is no striping, and then it picks up again for about 4 spaces. So
So the curb cut is aligned with the no striping, but it's not otherwise prevented from parking, right? There's just no stripes. Did you ever witness any cars parked in that area?
No, although you see there's one lonely car in figure two, I did see cars parked in that row closer to CVS, but not in the two spaces closest to the site. And I would be surprised if anyone was so bold as to park. When you're there, it appears to be an active driveway. It's not, doesn't have like a sign that says enter and exit, but it's pretty clear that it's a driveway. In fact,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jeff.
On your findings,
In fact, I'm sorry, the very last page of A10, you can actually see it much better. I completely forgot about this. You can see, you can see most of it. There is a car parked that's obscuring the view a little bit, but the left side of figure 4, about midway, the height of the image, is the curb cut I'm talking about that goes into the CVS lot.
Jess?
so in your findings and conclusions, you said the expected instructor-employee parking demand is 3 vehicles and accommodated by an alley located between the site and restaurant. Is that still a valid area to park? Because previously you mentioned you thought maybe they'd park, in the
Right.
CVS lot or elsewhere.
Yes, there is space in between the two buildings to park there. And I expect that could be used, but it's not the only place that the employees could park. They could also park in any public spaces, including the two I mentioned.
And do you know if that alleyway is part of your building? Or if it's shared?
I haven't done definitive research on that, but I do believe that the 1025 property, 2 owners ago, purchased a strip that gave 1025 the entire title to that alley. And I think the current owner, when they received a deed to 1025, got a deed to the larger parcel. But I don't believe that little 5-foot strip was ever conveyed. So there is a title question there as to whether the title vests in 2 owners ago to a little strip, or whether arguably the language in the deed might have included that and bootstrapped it in, even if it wasn't specifically conveyed. To me, it's unclear. There's that title issue, and therefore, I don't want to suggest that we have the absolute right. We may, but I don't know that for a fact, and therefore didn't want to really, frankly, get into that, because it is an unresolved question.
But the half you have is presumably 5 feet or not enough for a car.
Yeah, what we know is that if anybody has title, it's 1025, but the title to the little strip that creates the other half of that alley, I think still remains in the 2 owners ago of 1025 that never conveyed it and should have conveyed it. I was hoping to avoid that, that discussion because it is unresolved. And it's something that I think will need to be resolved in the acquisition of this, assuming this approval were granted and then settlement were to occur. I think that needs to be addressed. So it may well be when this is all said and done, there will be a clear legal right to that alley that goes with 1025.
And if you do end up getting that legal right, would you see yourselves parking in that alley? Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Devani? On page 3, you mentioned when you visited, and it was sort of 6 o'clock or so on each of Monday night and Tuesday nights, and then Saturday midday, because those were sort of the maximum turnover times that you were looking at. Did you happen to ever visit there on Friday night, when Westgate may be having happy hour, or there's traffic, you know, that may be different on a Friday than a Monday or a Tuesday, or why did you pick Monday and Tuesday?
There was no particular reason why I chose those days. I don't know, and again, I hate to keep punting, it might be a question for the applicant, whether or not they have slightly less turnout on Friday nights. That could be the case, just because it's Friday night, which would work well if in fact there is an additional parking demand at Westgate, for example. But I don't remember. I may have been there on a Friday, but I cannot recall, so I can't, the answer is no.
Okay. Any?
Nothing further.
Ed?
No additional questions.
Okay. And Jess, you already said you're done, right?
Yes, I am, thank you.
I have no questions.
Thank you. And I just have one or two questions of Kelly, Kirk. Kelly, if you would be sworn.
Will you be sworn, Kelly?
Sure.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And your full name and the capacity in which you are testifying this evening?
Kelly Kirk, Haverford Township zoning officer.
Now, Kelly, you were here at the beginning of this hearing when I described to the board a meeting that I had with you that addressed the question of parking as it related to this proposed use at this property.
I was.
And we had discussed the code parking requirements and what parking requirement was applicable to the jiu-jitsu use that was proposed for this location.
We did.
And we had looked at the various uses for which parking requirements are established under Code Section 182-707, and we did not see any use that specifically described the proposed use of jiu-jitsu, correct?
Correct.
And I had pointed out to the provision that says buildings or uses other than specified above as the default parking requirement when a use doesn't have a specific parking requirement for it, correct?
Correct.
Right. And you had said to me at the time that historically this type of use had been viewed for parking purposes as a personal service establishment. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that the zoning officer had looked at whether this type of use met the personal service establishment requirement. And is that correct?
Correct.
And the personal service establishment is one space for every 100 square feet of customer service area, in addition to one space for per employee, and of course, in this case, the 2 employees who would be working. And did we review at the time the floor plan exhibit that we have proposed this evening at this hearing?
We did.
Right. And when you viewed and added up the areas for customer service, did you come up with the same 19 spaces that would be required for a retail store at this location?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. I have no other questions. And that simply supports our position here that the property is currently non-conforming to 19 spaces for the retail use that has existed, that whether you were to apply the personal service establishment requirement or the building or uses other than specified above requirement, the nonconformity would not be exceeded by the proposed use. Now, the building or other uses than specified above does, by default, establish a parking requirement that would be rather low for this use, and one that if you were to legislate a parking requirement, you'd probably want a higher amount of parking than the code, in fact, requires for this use. So since this is a special exception, we wanted to just bring all of these points to the attention of the board as it analyzes the case. But we believe that even if this were reviewed in a very conservative way, under a personal service establishment analysis, that we would not be exceeding the existing nonconformity that this building and use has at the present time, which is 19 parking spaces. And with that, that concludes our case, and I would move for...
Any questions, Kelly, Jess,
No.
Ed?
Kelly, you didn't look at the existing floor plan for the existing buildings, how much available customer space available?
Retail is not based upon customer service area, it's full area. Personal service, it's based on customer service area, so having a floor plan isn't necessarily required to do the parking ratio for retail, as long as you have the dimensions of the building itself.
And there wouldn't be no exemptions for storage area?
No, retail does not.
Thank you.
Bill?
So Kelly, if you had the existing building having been used as retail, and that would be 201 parking spot for 200 square feet of floor area.
Correct.
How many parking spots in theory were we already in nonconformity?
So for the retail, it would have been 19 parking spaces. I'm sorry, 18 parking spaces.
18.
Because one space per 200 square feet of the entire floor area, whereas with the customer service area, again, is netted out for personal service.
And so the net result between the two different calculations is a net one additional car
For personal service, yes.
for personal service. And you think that is the right way to categorize this building?
That is what we've historically done. When you actually look at that section of the code in C3 for uses by right, Mr. Fromhold made a very good point that the other items listed under that personal service use were things like shoe repair or tailors, and maybe a nail salon, and not necessarily what we've kind of historically put else in under that category, such as dance studios, karate studios. It's certainly something that we should look at in the future to amend, but doesn't necessarily fall under that category. Not really.
And so your view is that while we may have looked in that, in this case, do you think we should be looking at buildings, the buildings or other uses other than specified above?
I think that that's the only appropriate place to put it under the parking ratios.
Benny?
And
Go ahead, Fred. you have-
I was just going to say, on that one space differential, the parking requirement for a retail use is one space for every 200 square feet of floor area, correct?
Correct.
Right. And floor area is a defined term in the code. And it says the sum of the gross area of the floors of a building measured from the face of the exterior walls. So you measure outside wall to outside wall, length and width of a building, is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And Lisa had testified that the building was measured at 3,680 square feet, or 115 in length by 32 in width, which gives you 3,680.
Correct.
And if you were to divide 3,680 by 200, you would get 18.4.
You are correct. Would make it
Okay,
19 spots.
So
I
we'd make it
apologize.
19. So we do have that. I just wanted to account for that one space. So, thank you.
So hold on. No, so Cal, what is the differential then between,
Well, between the it was the personal service and retail, they are the same. They're both 19.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, do you have anything to add?
I
Fred?
don't. I would move for the admission of our exhibits, and I thank
Admitted.
you all for your
A1
attention
through
and
A16.
patience. Pardon me?
A1 through A16.
That is correct.
With that, I will ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that was tested. Mary, right?
Mary?
And you were sworn at the last hearing?
Yes.
I don't need to swear you again then, Mary.
I'll do
You're
again?
still under
Okay. I don't know where to begin.
Mary Conti.
Mary Conti?
Conti.
I don't know where to begin. I wish I could have interrupted while everyone was talking, but I know I can't do that. I'll take the issue of parking. I live right in the area. They can ask me anything. I know everything about parking. I know everything about CVS. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. CVS parking is not available to anyone. It's considered private parking. They have it on their list as parking availability for pickup and drop-off. I don't think that should be allowed. That is not their parking. That is not legal parking for anybody in the neighborhood. Their employees do park there. They do not park on Roosevelt Avenue, which I heard they would intend to park where I live. That's number one. Number two, they have listed as parking Roosevelt Avenue, which I don't appreciate. I live right there, and no one in the area that has ever worked there, I've been there for 46 years, has ever parked there. CVS employees park in their parking lot. There is not a car from CVS that parks beside my house. That's number one. Manoa Road is open after 6 p.m., and we have on Manoa Road establishments. I went around the corner and counted the establishments on Manoa Road. We have from, what's the name of the road? Right around the corner. They have 5, 6 businesses right on Manoa Road, with the Westgate Pub, which is open. It was going to be open next week. Where they're going to park, I have no idea. I guess they're considering the municipal parking too. Then on Manoa Road to Westchester Pike, we have 16 businesses, not counting the CVS, which makes it 17. And if they open, will be 18 businesses in that one area. From Wilson Avenue to Westchester Pike, there is 6. From Manoa Road to Westchester Pike, there is 16. CVS would be 17, and they would be 18. I want to know where everyone is parking in the neighborhood. They say they evaluated the neighborhood. I don't know. I'll go home tonight. I won't have a parking space. Everyone in the area is afraid to leave their car because they know they're not going to have a parking space when they come back home. The letters that they sent out in the area, I would like to see the addresses they used, because every one of my neighbors, including my next door neighbor, said he never got a notice of anything. So I don't know what addresses they went to. They couldn't have been certified. I want to see the addresses. I'm entitled to that. I live 1025, right next door to them, 1024. So I'm hot, as you can probably tell. As far as children being picked up and dropped off, I take my grandchildren to karate on Friday, and their class is 45 minutes. And there is at least 10 in their class, and of the 10, I bet 8 parents are there waiting for their children to get done. And then the other parents come in and start talking and playing with the stuff they have for the children to play with. So the overlap is not in and out in 15 minutes. They are there plenty of time. They have their snacks at the table. One mother eats lunch there before she takes the kids home. So the overlap is not in and out. That's number one. And I'm a little bit confused how many are going to be in this building at one time. I wish someone would answer that question for me. Can you answer that, Lisa?
You have to
Am I
address
allowed to do
us.
that?
You're allowed to address the board, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I'd like to know how many people are going to be in that building at one time? Is it 15? Is it 20? Is it 24? Where are the cars going? On Roosevelt Avenue? Okay. Which lot do I have? They say they need 15 to 20 spaces. I don't know where they're getting them. I didn't receive a notice. I did receive one written letter that I passed to Mike that was here last week with me. They say there's not going to be any traffic around 5 o'clock. The school bus stops right at the corner of Garfield and Roosevelt at 4 o'clock. The parents are standing on the corner waiting for them. The bus comes around the Westchester Pike. The bus comes around the Westchester Pike at 5 o'clock to go down to Trinity Lutheran Church to pick up the kids that are there, to take them elsewhere. What else do I have here? All right, so the issue is, with me is the CVS should not be allowed for parking. They have that down. That is not legitimate parking. How many employees? I don't know the answer to that. I wrote down this little, maybe it's a little sarcastic, open for business. Flyer going to read, we have no parking, but you can park in the municipal parking lot right next to the Westgate Pub. You can park on Manoa Road. You can park in CVS lot. It's unattended. And you can park on Roosevelt Avenue. And we need 15 to 20 spots. So we have, like I say, all the businesses in the area, engineering job. Well, I won't comment on an engineering job. I wouldn't go by it myself. Go to Lawrence Park Shopping Center. If that was an engineering job well done, you could have fooled me. Leave class, drop off, that's not going to work. School bus, I said that. I have everything written down. Like I said, I wish I could have interrupted, but I couldn't do that. Proposed hours of operation, 4, 5, and 6 p.m., which if they get their people should be 15. Hopefully up, no business goes down. You're not opening the business to go down. They want more people, so they say 15 people, 15 a class overlapping. If I want the answer of how many people are going to be in that building. They say 70% of the people after 6 o'clock. I don't know what that means because some people are doing something and God knows what they're doing. Okay, I'm just going through my list because I waited, so now you're going to wait. I mean, nicely, I don't mean that mean, I'm sorry. Sessions 10 to 15. 10 to 15 participants. Okay. Employees, how many is going to be there? They need 20 spaces, 19. Unregulated parking spaces at CVS, 41. Their secondary one, not counted in parking. I'm sure CVS would not allow that unless they have a written agreement with CVS, which I doubt that they do. I've lived there for 46 years and never had an agreement with anybody I know of. I think I'm almost done, except for some of my answers. If someone will answer them, I'll be happy to listen. Leave class to drop off, I already said that. That does not happen. Just from my experience with my own children that are the same age group, 4 and 5, coming in. And I think their employees should be told if they have a driveway over there at any kind, the little alleyway, that's where their employees should drop, not in front of my house. So I can go out during the day and come back and have a parking space and not worried about a business being there. It's funny, you can give a business parking spaces. You live in the township and you're not entitled to a parking space outside your house, but a business can get a parking space? If that's not a joke. And I'm sure, I have written here, I'm sure there are plenty of spots for a recreation facility that would have plenty of parking available. Where I take my grandchildren, they have the overlap and all that, but there is no parking issue. They don't have a parking issue. And they still stay and hang around. I don't know what they're going to do here if they stay and hang around. Okay, can I answer my questions? How many Am I
I
allowed to do
actually have a
that?
question for you. I have a question for you.
Pardon me?
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Do you live north of Garfield Road?
I live in Roosevelt.
Where, are you north of Garfield? On Roosevelt?
Yeah, I don't know what it's,
So-
I'm right around, they're 1025, I'm 1024.
So if, look at this map. Here's Garfield, here's 1025. That's Roosevelt here.
I'm right across the street from CVS.
She said she's right across the street from CVS.
I'm right across from CVS. I can tell you everything that goes on at CVS.
So you're one of these houses?
Yeah.
And it looks on, like on this map, that all of the houses have driveways that allow for parking?
Well, yeah, but they don't go through a lot. They do use it.
Right,
And
so
they still have
the majority of the houses in this neighborhood have driveways that you can park a car on.
maybe not all, but yeah, most of them.
Okay.
But only one car, you can never get two in there,
Okay.
because it's a shared driveway. So it's a shared driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, they said there would be 2 employees.
2 employees and how many at one time in the,
2.
children? How many at one session? Because they have a big spot. Where I go, there's at least 10 to 12, but it's not the spot that they have.
They currently serve 10.
Okay, and that will go up, we hope. That's what you open a business for.
As high as 20.
Okay,
At
so
max.
if they're young children, that means a car.
From their.
I don't think they'll be able to walk.
Any information you have.
Yeah, and can I have the addresses of where they send in the neighborhood? They said they sent their brochure around in the neighborhood?
And they said whenever there's a zoning case, the township sends out a courtesy notification to adjoining property owners. And the township sends that by certified mail. So what they said they did was requested the list of property owners that the township notified, and they sent letters to those same people. So that's what they said they did.
But, I do think the township has to take into consideration all the other businesses. It makes it almost sound like this is their parking lot. The municipal, Manoa Road, they want to include CVS, which I'm sure they cannot include. So they have no parking in CVS, which they are allowing most of their parking for. And drop-off in CVS will be a disaster. I see people all the time. I live there. I know what goes on in that neighborhood. They cut through CVS all the time to get off to Westchester Pike, all the time. I see it, boop, off West, and then they go right down Roosevelt. I would be scared to death to be dropping my child off at CVS, because you know what's going to happen? You know the Y would happen at the Y? It's going to happen to CVS if they start that business, I'll tell you right now. And the Y thing was strictly because of parking and too much traffic. And it's going to be the same with CVS if they try this.
We're not-
And God forbid.
We're not going to get into that, Mary.
Well, I'm just saying, because of the parking and the way it's going. That's my concern there with dropping off anybody at the CVS like that. They think they're just going to pull in. There's not always open along there. They park all over the parking lot in CVS. That's not a guarantee that they're going to pull in and just right in front, boop, boop, get out, Johnny. It's not going to happen that way. So, I think it has to be taken into consideration. There is no parking in the neighborhood for any more traffic, I'll tell you. There's no parking. And for the time that they're coming in, there's no parking. If the gentleman took the survey, he came in the area when a lot of the people aren't even home from work. Come in the area at 6:15, there won't be a spot open, except if they're going to park on our Roosevelt Avenue. So then everybody's never going to move their car because they know they're not going to get their spot back. And I don't think that's right. You're supposed to come in a neighborhood being a good neighbor, not upsetting the neighbors. And that's not being a good neighbor, thinking you can just come in and park on a private. It's not a private street. I understand this parking is public. But use what you have, or use your municipal and spend 75 cents then, or $1, whatever it's going to cost you a day until
Mary.
the ban is lifted.
There are some things, and I want to be careful. I want you to stop.
Okay, no, that's
I
right.
understand.
I'm tough skinned.
There are certain things that are within the discretion of this board.
Okay.
There are other things that go into deciding a case that are matters of law. We really don't have discretion. You heard a lot of that in Mr. Fromhold's presentation. He knows the list of items that he needs to check. And it's helpful to hear your concerns, and the board obviously will apply them. I lived on Wilson for 18 years, so I know the neighborhood. I know exactly what you're talking about. But, you know, Mr. Malone will advise us on how to best blend and consider the law principles that we have to apply with the discretionary items. But we certainly understand your concerns. You know, regardless of the outcome, I don't want you to feel, you know, that your concerns are disregarded if it's approved. You know, someone else, if it's not approved, someone else is going to come in to use the building. It's not just going to stay empty.
How about another rug place? Land was no trouble at all.
But the problem with that is the township can't legislate and say, only a rug sales place
Oh,
can
no,
go
I
in
said
there.
that, yeah.
So what's the next applicant come in with? You know, a beer garden where you're throwing beer? You
No,
know,
I
we've
don't think
had
another- I don't
situations
think
where
that-
people were throwing beer bottles all over the place, and that disrupted neighborhoods at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, it's a really difficult situation, but we're very sensitive to the parking concerns of the area.
Well, that's a legitimate sensitivity because there is none. There is no parking. There really isn't. And like I say, the Westgate Pub is so-so over there. You
understand.
know that one.
I understand.
mean,
I've
that's
had
not,
people, when I lived there, that parked and blocked my driveway.
exactly.
I went down to the Manoa Pub.
Yeah.
But we have to blend all these things. I just want you to understand that, because you don't know if this application was denied, what would the next applicant be? And
Well,
and
like
what
I
would the
say,
parking use,
wouldn't it still be the same thing for anybody else that came in if they're studying the neighborhood for parking?
Well, another aspect of this is something called pre-existing nonconformity. So what that means in real terms is there wasn't enough parking for the rug place, and there's not enough parking for this place, and the rug place would have required 19 spots. That was the testimony that we heard. And this place would require 19 spots. So they're not creating any additional burden over what the rug place theoretically, a normal rug place would have generated. So that's one of the principles of law that Mr. Fromhold made his argument, presented evidence to the board about. So, you know, we appreciate and we understand your concerns.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that received certified mail? Anyone else that received regular mail? Any other resident of Haverford Township that want to address the board about this matter? Fred, do you have anything to add?
I do not, thank you. But my final comment simply is that there are special exception standards, and I respectfully submit that the testimony that we presented would demonstrate that we meet each of those special exception standards. I don't think I need to walk through them with you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. With that, we'll close the record on this matter, and a decision will be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on June 6th.
Thank you very much.
See you, Fred. You're welcome. All right, what's that? Who are the Cowlings? You guys? You're next. So before we start, they obviously had a lawyer. You heard him enter exhibits into the record. If you have anything that you want us to look at during your case, I saw some pictures in your hand. They could be baby pictures that you're showing your wife. I don't know. If they're pictures that you want to show the board or any other drawings or plans or things, they need to be marked as exhibits, and they'll be marked A, applicant, you're the applicant, 1, and then consecutively after 1. And I think the best way to help you would be if we take a 2-minute break and I ask Mr. Malone to come around and help you pre-mark your exhibits, and then we'll identify them. So either you or I or Mr. Malone will just hold them up and say, this has been marked A1. Is this what you're asking? A photograph of your property or whatever it is, a brief description. So marking the exhibits, identifying them for the record, and then when you present your case, you can just say, and exhibit A1 shows this or that or whatever.
Sure.
Okay?
Got it.
I think that will help you best, so we're going to take a 2-minute break.
Okay, thank you.
The record?
Perfect.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we'll resume the meeting of Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, May 16, 2019. Okay, so when we went off the record, Mr. Malone is going to help you mark your exhibits, mark the exhibits that you want to submit to the board.
Yes.
Okay, and I have 5 pictures. I need to swear you both in, but I have 5 pictures. Are these the only exhibits that you want to have marked?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, no. And the plot,
The plot plan?
like the one we submitted and got denied.
Please.
Okay, ladies first, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Tricia Cowling, 500 Howell Lane, Havertown, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Your full name and address for the record, please?
Eric Francis Cowling, 500 Howell Lane, Havertown, 19083.
Okay. And who's going to be the primary spokesperson?
Me.
Okay.
While we were off the record, we marked 6 exhibits. I'm going to show you exhibit A1. Can you just tell the board briefly what A1 is?
This is standing at the property, the corner, so we're a corner lot. It's on the corner of our property, showing our front and side yard.
And it's a photograph.
Yes. Oh, yeah, sorry, it's a photograph.
What is exhibit A2? Another photograph of what?
This is a photograph of our front door and showing the porch.
Exhibit A3 is another photograph. What does this show?
This is showing the original chain link fence on our side yard.
Exhibit A4, what does it show?
That is showing the rear yard in the back of the house past the driveway.
And photograph A5, what does it show?
Our back door going straight to our driveway.
And exhibit A6? Can you tell the
That
board
is
what
our
this
plot plan from the fence company.
Thank you.
And I say I'm not surprised because my wife is the boss of the house.
Right. And I don't argue.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you would like to do and,
So I have like something written. Can I just like read it?
sure.
Okay. So our original request got denied, and that was to fence the entire front and side yard seen in A1, which we would still love to do, but it's a lot of fencing out on the main road. But this is because our front door is unused, and we would still like to be able to fence a good portion of the yard without making like our yard chopped off. We only enter through the back door, and when we originally moved into the house, the mailbox was in the back of the house, so like it's just how the house is set up. We do need a fence for our yard no matter what. We have 3 dogs, and 2 of them are getting older, so walking them on like long walks and stuff isn't really as much of an option. In addition to the age, the one of the older dogs doesn't socialize well with other dogs. She has 2 torn ACLs from aging, and walking is not recommended for her. We're trying to buy some time before we get the fence. We have an electric fence along our entire property, and we also have a long leash corkscrewed into the ground that she wears with a harness. That dog has gotten out twice so far without the fence being up. The one time she broke through the invisible fence without the harness and leash, and the other time we got the harness and leash, and she, after wear and tear of pulling, she eventually broke out of the harness. We want to try and avoid the dogs going out of the back door because it is a high-traffic area, because that's where we park and enter. So
We understand that the whole front and side yard is a lot, so our second choice, we are looking to fence, which is in A6, our plan, to redirect a front fence to our backyard. We're asking to fence starting at the top of the hill, and this would be, which is seen in A2, in front of our porch, in front of the walkway. So this would go straight over to the side to the original chain link fence seen in A3, and it would be 20 feet from our property line instead of the regulated 30 feet. The chain link fence leads to our backyard and up our property line. We would then fence the backyard to the driveway, and that's seen in picture 4. That's just our or A4, I'm so sorry. That's just our backyard. And then A5 shows how our back entrance doesn't go to a yard. It goes straight to our driveway, and letting the dogs out, it creates a higher chance for the dogs to actually get loose. We do have 3 dogs. And, we have a kid on the way and all of this, and we just think the more foot traffic we have going in and out of the house, the more of a chance the dogs are going to end up getting out if we're fencing from that area. So I think not only we would appreciate it, but I think our neighbors would too, if we had the dogs go out the front door.
So it's a 4-foot high fence that
Yes.
you're requesting.
Correct.
What type of fence?
Aluminum.
4-foot black aluminum.
Like estate type fencing?
It's just like the tiny little.
Squares? How much, is it 50% open?
No, it's like a lot more than that. It's just like little tiny things with like,
Big gaps?
yeah.
Yeah, big gaps, yeah. The aluminum bar's only an inch wide. And then the pillars are, I forget.
I think like a couple inches apart maybe.
Yeah,
Similar to what's on your front porch?
that's
Similar,
wrought iron.
similar.
That's wrought iron, but it's similar to that style
Just
and
be aluminum.
spacing.
Yeah, it would
it'll
look
just be
kind of
aluminum.
like that, yeah.
Correct.
Are you going to be installing kind of door over your walkway to get to the front door?
Yes,
Gates, yeah.
A gate.
a gate over the walkway, yeah.
Have you considered, sort of, since the fence in front is non-conforming, of putting a gate across your driveway? Was that ever a thought that you had to
It
kind
is
of
a
enclose
thought.
the
We
whole thing?
have, I am a nurse, so on snowy days, I park in the driveway, in the garage, and that would not be an option if we had a fence going across it. So-
Even if there was an operable gate on that?
We did talk about that.
So we also have, if we have the dogs out in the gate, trying to pull into
ring,
our driveway,
right.
we open it, the dogs are running away.
Right, okay.
I'm trying to understand where the fence would be, the proposed fence would be.
So
Is it shown on A6 somewhere?
It is. It's showing that it's gonna be 20 yards from, or 20 feet from the property line.
it's like a tiny faded line, 3.5 feet from the porch, so it would just be like the walkway.
Just fenced right after the.
And where would that start? It would be,
On the other side of the porch. So we would fence in the porch to this chain link.
so you would link, there would be a 3.5-foot segment connecting to the outer corner of the porch,
Yes,
and then running down that faint line
yes,
parallel to the front of the porch,
correct,
connecting to the existing chain link fence.
yes.
And then you're going to replace the chain link fence with the
No.
same new kind of fence?
No, we're gonna just
We're
attach
just
to
gonna
it.
start when it leaves off in the
All
back
right,
and
so
then
then it
just-
runs down the chain link fence, and what happens to it?
and then we pick up with the aluminum and do our backyard.
And so your backyard, it will go down and then turn all the way around the corner on
Well, Mount Pleasant.
the
Like
picture
along
on
the bushes.
A4?
Yeah, along the bushes.
Along the bushes.
An A4.
And then then it's going to turn and come to your driveway?
Correct.
Correct.
And then what, go down along the driveway and then connect to the wall of the garage?
Correct.
So although you have a corner lot and you have two front streets,
Yeah.
but you're going to leave essentially the corner perspective open.
Correct.
Have you thought about whether you would just take the fence from the corner of the house directly to the chain link fence?
We would love to.
So, no, the corner of this house. So, our house is on like a big hill.
Yeah.
So my dad's a contractor, and he talked about how we wouldn't be able to fit steps going to stay 30 feet from the yard off of our, like, in A2, it's like our porch, and then there's little steps there. If you're looking at the picture to the right, it goes down really steep, so it would be like a lot of steps to get down. And to stay 30 feet, we would kind of have to go towards the house a little bit, and there wouldn't be enough room.
So
Very old dogs.
what if the fence just started right at the stoop up by the front door and went right in front of the house? So it was kind of, you'd walk out and you'd be in the fence, because if you just connected to your existing wrought iron fence, so the dogs could go down to the right and around the house, right?
It's open on the opposite side, though. There's no gate on the porch for the other fence, so they would still have a way out. We couldn't just open the door and let them go.
But you could enclose that,
Yeah.
the other side of the porch.
You were gonna tie in anyway.
So that's a 3-foot fence. We also have 100 and some pound mastiff that I'm not sure would be able to just kind of walk over 3 feet. I'm not really sure. He hasn't really learned to jump yet. He's still a puppy, but I think having 4 feet, we would feel a little bit more secure, but.
Ed?
I'm having really trouble with the plot plan. I don't know, I don't see the right-of-way. I don't see the sidewalk. So I'm trying to figure out where the fence is going to end on that corner of Howe. Mount Pleasant.
So there would not be a fence on the corner. It would just be enclosing our porch.
And so your fence would go across the sidewalk or not?
The walkway,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the
Yes.
walkway up to your house.
yes,
Not near
the
the
side.
sidewalk, but somewhere 3.5 feet from your porch,
yes.
and then it would tie back in. You should probably get your drawing and make the changes and highlight it so we can actually see where that fence is going to go.
It was highlighted on the original.
Well, we can't
Yeah,
see
okay.
it on your exhibit.
I got you.
Okay,
You have a pen that you could do that with?
I know, that's what I'm looking for.
You can use my pen if you want.
Thank you.
Yes, the one you're going to use, submit for an exhibit, so it needs to be on this one.
There, I think.
On the front of the house, we're going to come to the corner of the existing front of the house
Yes,
and come out past your porch 3.5 feet, at which time it'll go down towards the chain link fence in front of your house, having a gate put in across your walkway to your front door.
yes.
And then on the back of the property, there's no variance required. I don't know what the right-of-way is for Mount Pleasant or how. Did you,
They said it was 25 feet from the center.
Off the street.
of the street. And we would we're asking to start the feet at 20 feet from our property line.
Is there a sidewalk up, all the way up on Mount Pleasant?
There is.
So how far is the fence going to be from that sidewalk?
I think it's 2 feet. I think we gave a little bit of leeway just in case, like, people are walking from the sidewalk.
25 feet from the center of Mount Pleasant.
That's our property line, it's shown.
Yeah, sidewalk's not shown on the plot plan, so it's kind of hard to visualize how far it's going to be. The other concern I have is having a fence so close to your driveway, so when you back out, you can't see the kids coming up and down the sidewalk. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, there is going to be a gap, but yeah, I understand that the fence can obstruct the view.
Well, we don't want it to do that, so how can we rectify that? Because it's even on an angle type of situation.
I mean, we picked the most transparent fence. I don't know.
Yeah, but you're going to be looking through two of them, so that's, I would rather angle it there, so at least you have the width of a car before you get to the sidewalk.
And what do you actually mean by that, by angling it?
Like here.
By cutting out some of the grass and just,
Just cutting the corner, I think.
Yes. So in other words, where it comes to a point there at the sidewalk and the driveway, come on an angle so that you have at least, I don't know how far this would be, but a car length before you're, so you can see up the sidewalk without the fence being in the way.
Okay.
sure.
But it's kind of hard to visualize just because we don't have the dimensions here, but, so, how far would you take the corner of the fence from the sidewalk up the driveway for the angle?
We didn't expect to do any of it, but,
I'm not.
I think we're more ready for the front and not for the back, so.
Yeah, we didn't think there was any ordinance against the back, because it's but I don't know, what would you think, 5 feet? I think that's a little too much to cut it.
Well, you brought up a good point. Is that fence by right use of fence in that area?
What's a secondary front yard, right?
Which is the primary front yard?
Howling.
He did not say it was a secondary front yard. I'll leave you for
And there's already a fence pre-existing to this house, going around the whole property line. It was taken down by the owners that we just bought the house from.
What do you mean, around the whole property line?
Around the whole property line, from sidewalk all the way around.
Oops.
I think we're going to need Kelly to come give us information about this. What are your thoughts, Ed?
I kind of thought that when she said it was only one yard, and the front yard would have been off of Howe when she looked at the drawing. So if the backyard fence is by right, then I would just, as long as the codes office should be the one making the determination on where it goes at that point.
And that's why I said, I think we may need Kelly to provide us some additional information. Do you agree? Do you agree, Jeff?
Yes.
Bill?
I do. I think we have the whole 5-foot limitation on secondary front yard positioning of fences anyway. I think we have to see the location and we have to get confirmation on that.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We need Kelly to provide us some information about this. So we're gonna continue your case to our next hearing date. In the intervening period, if you would, maybe draw a little clearer map so everyone can get a clear understanding of exactly where the fence would be. Also, if you could consider what Bill had asked, or Jess had asked, maybe tying off the front yard down into the fence that's existing, instead of coming all the way over the sidewalk, just, I'm not getting a clear image of
It's
exactly.
very, very old dogs to have them walk down, if we would build steps there. My one dog cannot walk down steps, I have to carry him. So it would make that very difficult to just close off our porch and just have him walk off the porch like that. We'd have to build steps. That's a job that we're not really trying to get into.
And
And it would be
it
unnecessary.
would be a lot of just because we're on a hill, I think it would be a lot. And like, our two old dogs have bad legs.
From this A2.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Bill, would you please ask Kelly to come to our next hearing,
Yes.
When is this next hearing?
June 6th, right? Any other questions or information anybody might want from Tricia or Eric at the next hearing?
No, I think having a good plot plan that we can really see where are the sidewalks, where's the street, what's the right-of-way, 25-foot right-of-way or 45-foot right? And then where exactly do you want to put your fence, tying to the house, tracking the boundary, and then where would it be, how far in from the property line would it be? And you can just indicate by footage, you don't have to go out and measure it with a ruler. It's
Okay.
just,
And just a picture of the fence that you're thinking of.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be, I know the wrought iron one will be similar, but that spacing is probably closer to a foot or so. And the application said more like 4 inches in between the pickets.
probably
So
what it is, yeah.
if you just grab a picture, even if it's a standard fence from Home Depot or something, just we have an image of what you're thinking.
Your fence installer may have a picture he could give you.
Yeah, we have it already.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. Sorry, guys.
It's all right.
That's okay.
We'll
Thank
wrap
you.
it up on June 6th,
Okay.
one way or another.
Thank you.
With that, this case is continued to our June 6th hearing. Our next case is Z19-13, Alexander Yuskevich and Sonia Zizulin, owners of 2 Spring Mill Lane, Haverford, PA, DC folio number 2204-00654556, who seek a variance from the provision of section 182-727C to allow placement of 3-foot-high estate fence in the front yards of Spring Mill Lane and College Avenue. Property is zoned SRD and located in the 5th Ward. Hello.
Hold your, do you want me to hold it?
You can just put a chair if you want. Okay. Ladies first. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and address for the record?
Sonia Zazulin, 2 Spring Mill Lane, Haverford.
You're going to have to speak louder than that, Sonia.
Sonia Zazulin, 2 Spring Mill Lane, Haverford.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record?
Alexander Yushkevich, 2 Spring Mill Lane, Haverford.
Okay.
While we were off the record, we marked 4 exhibits. I'm going to show them to you, just ask you to identify them. Who's going to primarily speak?
Me.
I'm showing you Exhibit A1. Can you tell the board what that is?
This is the chain fence along College Avenue.
I'll show you Exhibit A2. Can you tell the board what this is?
Yeah, it's also College Avenue. Fence will be placed behind the existing hedge. And it also shows the neighboring fence.
I'll show you Exhibit A3. Can you tell the board what that is?
Yes, this is the view from across the road. It's the existing neighboring fence, just across our property.
And then Exhibit A4.
This is the part of way made by surveyor Jeff Turner. So it shows the proposed lines. So we are asking for a variance from the code in order to build a 95 feet long and 3 feet high aluminum stand face in the front yard along College Avenue. And please note that there is currently an existing chain fence there that is 25 feet long and 5 feet high. Exhibit 1 shows the existing chain fence, and it looks pretty ugly, if you can see. So in other words, we are asking to remove the existing fence, chain link fence, and to replace it with the new aluminum estate 3 feet high fence. The fence will be placed behind the existing green hedge and will not be noticeable from the street as shown on Exhibit 2. And Exhibits 2 and 3 show the fences on the neighboring properties. The fence will be located 7-8 feet from the curb and 23 feet from the center line of the street. And the second, so if you can take a look, Exhibit 4, this is College Avenue, and this is the existing fence, which is on our property. Our neighbors have chain link fence along the property line. And on the northern side of the property, we are going to install the fence, 3 feet high aluminum fence, which is required by the board. It will be put over the retaining wall, which we are going to build after the design will be approved by the town engineer. So the fence which I just described will be on the southern side of the property, will be 95 feet long. We are also seeking for a variance from the code to install 2 segments of the fences on the southern part of the from the house and on the northern side. So it will be 35 and 65 feet long. It will be again, 3 feet high estate aluminum fence. These fences will be also hidden between the hedge, evergreen fences, bushery, trees, pines, and will not be noticeable from the street. Thereby we are not going to
Aesthetically change the
aesthetically change the
environment around
the
us.
view from the street.
Are those bushes there already, or would you
No.
be planning?
Hold on.
And-
We're going to plant them.
Okay, Ken, do you have any questions?
Well,
We have 8 minutes. Do you have any questions?
can we also just add that we've talked to all of the neighbors, and so they're aware of what we're doing, and the only comment that we had was one. And that was,
Our neighbors, Michelle and Jonathan Conlon, suggested that it will be more aesthetically pleasing to change the angle of this fence and to make it straight north. So this fence will be aligned not with our house, but with their house. Because they have currently the green hedge and fence here. So these 2 fences will be in parallel.
yeah, but other than that, none of the neighbors had any issues or problems at all.
Do you want to do that or no?
Not necessarily, but but, you know, we're just telling you what the comments were, so that you have a fair picture of, since they're not here.
But ideally, the angle that you're showing on
Well,
your
yes,
plot plan
it makes
is what
sense,
you want.
because then it's aligned with the way
With your
our
house.
house lies. Yeah.
Yes, and Michelle, she's an artist, very interesting artist, and we trust her judgment.
Yeah, those are the people.
Bill, do you have questions?
I don't.
Ed?
I guess we have the same question about the two front yards. I don't see the right-of-way line, College Avenue, just had problems with College Avenue. So I don't know where the right-of-way is for that.
I think we,
Whether or not we need to have approvals for both of those fences, because is that one in the rear side yard?
Bill, do you remember is it 25 foot from the center line of College Avenue?
Yes.
So the current fence is 23 feet from the center of College Avenue. So,
Would you be willing to push that back to 25?
yeah, if we're required to.
The other thing here was, why do you have to do this, and what is the hardship?
The reason for this request is to provide a safe environment for, our infant grandson, and who will be our care while our daughter will return to work. And this was the reason why we moved back here from Florida. She asked us for the help, and also we have, a dog, a small but vicious, deer hunter. And unfortunately, 4 years ago, we lost our dog in Florida. So a drunken neighbor hit on the curb. So it was just, a disaster for us, and we wouldn't want to repeat it again.
If there were, so for example, just out of curiosity, the size of the extent of the fence, like let's say we requested that the line of the fence here move towards the back of the garage. Is that kind of change a deal breaker for you?
Really, but over here, we're going to have a cherry garden.
Okay.
So we would like to have an access free from the porch.
There are doors
And are these
there.
planted
There are
already?
doors there.
The cherry
But they are
trees?
potted
Okay,
already.
good, thank you.
It will be not a cherry orchard, but cherry garden.
Any other questions?
No.
Ed,
Other question?
is there anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you for your attention.
Okay. And with that, I know there's no one in the audience, but I need to go through this litany. I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify? Anyone that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? Seeing no show of hands, we'll close the record on this case, and a decision will be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on June 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good night.
Night.